Today I'm going to show you how to replace the belts in an old cassette deck, and I'm also going to add a speed modification to create a tape delay echo machine. Hi, I'm Aid. This is a Kenwood KX1030 cassette deck. I got this at a thrift store for pretty cheap. I'm going to show you how I replace the belts, and then I'm also going to add a speed adjustment modification so that this tape deck can be used as a echo machine. What makes this tape deck interesting, most of the thrift store tape decks that I've come across are only two-headed. This is a three-head. If you come across one of these tend to be worth restoring because they're more sought after. I believe this one on eBay, it should go for at least $100, maybe more. This one cost me $13 because it's sold as is for parts. So I can't return it, so hopefully I'll be able to restore it. Most likely it just needs new belts. The other thing is it's got some pretty bad cosmetic damage. Somebody scraped a number. I can't tell what it is, if it was a phone number or what, but they scratched it right into the plate here, and then when they gave it to Goodwill, they just scratched it off to remove that number. I'll probably try to sand that down a bit, but it's an ugly thing. But that also lets me not feel too guilty about the modification I want to do. I want to convert this into a tape echo machine, and that's something you could do on a three-headed tape deck, but not a two-headed one. So let me just explain that process a little bit. A three-headed tape deck has three heads: a erase, a record, and then a playback. That playback, that third one, is the thing that is unique to a three-head. You'll notice there's a switch here that says monitor or source. And what that does is it lets you switch between the audio coming out of this would either be coming out of tape, would be the playback head, and then source would be the audio that's being recorded onto it. And because this is a physical tape head, there's a tiny gap between the tape and the source. If I open this, you can see how that tape head is divided in half. It records on the tape here, and then you can play it back a fraction of a second later on that second half. So technically you could use this as an echo machine without any modifications, just by playing it through the tape playback. But because that is so small, the time of that delay is going to be very short. So the modification I'm going to do is to add a speed control to the motor so that I'll have a knob that can control the speed of the playback. And by slowing that down, it's kind of like increasing the time between the recording and the playback, so that echo will be delayed longer. I'm going to open this up and see what's wrong with it and clean it up and bring this old Kenwood back to life. All right, with that opened up, I can see already that the belts indeed were bad. You can see the motor here, the larger belt right here is turned to goo and it's no longer connected here. Looks like the other belts are still intact. That one looks okay. And then there's some belts in here for the tape counter. I'll probably leave these tape counter belts as is and just replace the two main ones here that would affect playback. That way I don't have to disassemble this quite so much. This motor is where I'm going to be doing my modification. I'm going to tie a potentiometer into this area here so that I can control the speed of that motor. The other thing I noticed, these knobs are really tight, and they're so tight that there's supposed to be a independent two-way movement, so you can turn that one separate from this. Those are really locked up on both of these. I'll be lubricating those to get those loose. For now, I'm just going to remove the knobs. See, they're really on there tight, so they do come off. It just takes quite a bit of pressure. This thing is probably from 1978, so it's been 50 years since these were put on. I have to remove this cover. No screws there, it just slid into arms there. Okay. While I have this off, I can work on sanding that. While I've got this taken apart, it's a good time to clean the knobs. And then I've also been sanding this rough spot where they scratched a number into the side. It's not perfect. I had to sacrifice the Kenwood word, so that got sanded off along with it. Maybe I'll put something else there so it doesn't look so empty, but at least it doesn't look completely scratched. Now I can see the remaining screws that hold the tape assembly in. Looks like 5 screws that, no, 6, 7 screws that I'm gonna remove next. And with those removed, I should be able to pull this out. I'm gonna remove this tape counter next. Got this to a spot where it's loose enough that I can access the screws for this motor. So I'm going to remove that next. Yeah, this belt has just turned to goo. I can clean that a little more with alcohol. This is the messy part, but just isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips should clean that flywheel up. And I'll come back to this, but you can see on this motor there's 2 wires going into a board, and that's where we're going to tie in with the speed control. Alright, I've got the motor removed, I've got the flywheel cleaned, and now I'm going to try to remove this plate. So you can see with this plate removed, now I can get the belt around that flywheel. Next I'm going to work on this motor. I'm just testing my plan here for the speed adjustment. Basically I've got the 2 wires coming out of the tape layer. The positive wire goes into this potentiometer and then into the motor, and then the negative wire comes out of the motor and straight back to the other wire. So just to demonstrate that that works, and I don't know if you can see that this motor is not turning, but if I turn the potentiometer, now that turns, and on one extreme it goes very slow, and on the other extreme it goes full speed. Next I'm going to connect wires to this motor. I believe positive is the inside wire and negative is the outside wire. I haven't quite decided where I'm going to connect the speed control, so I've just left myself enough wire that I can make that decision later. Next I'm going to reattach the motor. I don't have this wired up yet. You can see the other end isn't connected, but once I have this in place, it'll let me replace the belts. Now for the new belt, got to get it around the flywheel. And then once it's around the flywheel, I can loop it over the motor. For the second belt, it's going to go on the little ring of the motor. And then around this little ring on the top and on the inside of that second wheel. Connected with gator wires so I can test that the motor spins, and we're looking good. I did decide to change the belts on the tape counter. Here you can see It's actually not too bad to replace these. This plate comes off with 2 screws, and then you have access to the belts. Now to put it all back together. There's a gotcha here when you're putting this back together, where this arm here is what the front door connects to. And it's really hard to see, but if you can see behind here, there's a gear that turns when this opens to slow that door from opening. In order to get that to work, you have to make sure that the arm goes into the gear. So this arm right there goes in through this wall, and there's a little slot that sticks inside a plastic gear, and if you don't get that in the slot, you won't get the resistance when that door opens. So I'm just going to do a quick sanity test here. I've got some headphones. I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to stick a tape in before I put this all back together. I just want to make sure that looks like power comes on, and then you can hear we're getting audio out of the headphones, which is a good sign. And then my speed adjustment is working too. Right now I'm going to try to unfreeze these knobs on the front. So this is just deoxit fader. Spray some of that in there. I think I have a method for unfreezing these too. So using the knobs, if I put that outer one on just enough to give me a grip, and then using the other knob on top, now I can get enough leverage, hopefully, that it's really tight. Once it starts turning, it loosens up a little bit. I'll just keep working that until it loosens up a little more. The spring came loose on this, and the latching on this door stopped working, so there's a little part that sticks out here that latches in this. I'll show you how it works when it's working correctly. You can see it's hooked, and then when you press the second time, it slides straight out. If you're not sure if that spring comes loose, here's where it connects. So on the inside, one arm of the spring is pressing outwards here. The other side of the spring is latched on that right there. So there's a lot of tension pushing this down. With the tape deck put back together, I've been listening to a couple tapes and just really impressed by the sound of this Kenwood tape deck. I've got, I don't know, probably a dozen or so tape decks, and this competes right with the best ones I have. So it makes me almost a little bit guilty about this tape speed modification that I'm going to make, because yeah, it's a really good tape deck. So I've been figuring out how I want to run these wires. So I decided to come out the bottom corner here, because I think that'll allow the case to close on these 2 wires. I'm going to have a switch and a potentiometer that controls the speed. On the inside, here's this was the original wire that was connected to the motor here. Now I've extended those wires so black goes straight into the motor, and then this white wire is going out, and then red coming back in, and that red connects to the motor. Now with this box closed up, I've got my 2 wires coming out the bottom. I'm gonna run them up here and then into my little box where I'm gonna have the switch. The switch will switch it between speed control and just normal, and that knob will control the speed. I'm thinking I'll have the switch right aligned with the power switch, and then the pot will be over here so I can have my knob right there to control the speed. When the wires come up here, they'll go right into that corner of the box. So I'm gonna drill holes, one here, and one here. So the pot will go in there, my switch will go here, and then wires will come up through there. I've got the box in position, just electrical tape to keep it in place. I decided not to do anything permanent here in case I need to open this back up and get at it, but just covering the wires with black electrical tape. Now I'm ready to wire up the switch and the knob. As I'm figuring out this knob, what happens is when it's all the way up, it works fine because I'm getting 100% speed. When I'm all the way off, once it stops, it triggers the auto stop. So I want, when it's all the way off, to still have a slight bit of electricity flowing through there so that when it's all the way off, it's actually the slowest speed. So that's where this second little pot comes in. This one I can dial into the exact minimum that I need to keep that wheel spinning. I finished connecting up the switch and the knob. The white wire is connected to the center of the switch. That goes to the center of the pot. So the red wire coming out of the tape deck is going to the top. From the top of the switch, it goes into this limiter potentiometer. From that, it goes into the bottom of the pot. So a black wire is connected to the bottom of the switch, which goes into the other leg of this limiter pot. From there, it goes to the top of that pot. Again, the purpose of this pot here is to set the bottom range so that even when it's all the way off here, there's still the minimum I need to turn the tape. Here's a demo of the speed control. Press play. You can see that the tape is turning at a pretty good speed. Once I switch this on, it's going to slow way down. So I've got it all the way turned to the slowest here. Any slower than that, it tends to trigger the auto stop. Now I can turn it on a range that increases the speed. And you can see I've got a little fast speed all the way down to the slowest. And then with it off, that should just be the regular speed to play audio at the correct speed. Now I can show you what the echo actually sounds like. Put the tape in there. I've got a microphone. This is a mono microphone, but this would work with a stereo source too. I've got that going into the right channel here. Turn it to source first for a test. I'm gonna record on this. So now I've got this tape speed going at the slowest that I can get it to go. I'll demonstrate what that delay sounds like. Test. And there we're getting some feedback. It's a little bit hard to measure, but maybe half a second delay. Feedback. Testing. And then you should be able to control the pitch if you change it as the audio is going. So let's see what happens with this. I'm making a test with the audio where I change the sound. I'm changing the speed as I'm recording into it. So yeah, you can have some fun with this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.